Hey everyone, it's Amber Connor here with Sinless Sweets, and welcome back to the Sinless Sweets Kitchen. Here in Augusta, Georgia, it is officially fall, y'all. So we are gonna be doing some delicious fall-inspired desserts. Our first dessert that we're gonna be doing today is our pumpkin cream cheese loaf. So it is loaded with nutmeg, cinnamon, pumpkin, and cream cheese flavor. So if you guys are ready to get started, we are gonna be starting with 1/2 cup of butter. So as you will notice, my butter is melted, but if you have room temperature butter, that works as well. Everything is gonna be in one bowl. So I like to do one bowl recipes, especially when we're doing it for our YouTube channel, because it just makes it a little bit easier to follow along. So let's go ahead and start with 1/2 cup of butter. Now, typically in some recipes, you can do the wet ingredients first and then the dry ingredients, but the great thing about one bowl recipes is you can do everything at one time. So 1/2 cup of butter, and then we are gonna add in 3/4 cup of pureed pumpkin. Now make sure it's not a like a pumpkin filling, but it's actually pure pumpkin puree. So you can just add that in. So that's 3/4 cup of pumpkin, and we'll go ahead and just get that stirred up a little bit. And then we are gonna be adding in 4 eggs. Now for this particular recipe, it's super important that these eggs are room temperature. So make sure that you have room temperature eggs for this particular recipe. So we're gonna do 4 of those. Just crack those and get those in. Now I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love pumpkin. I guess they call that basic here in the South, but I love all things pumpkin spice. So, of course, we would be doing a pumpkin cream cheese bread loaf for one of our recipes. So we do have that, so we're just gonna start mixing that just a little bit. Now you can use a spatula or a whisk, whatever is easier at home. Now here at the bakery, we typically use one of our mixers here in the back, but today I'm just gonna make it a little bit easier on you guys, and we're just gonna do everything in one bowl. So then we are gonna add in, let's see, this is 1 1/3 cup of almond flour. Now, this recipe is not only keto friendly, but it's also low carb, sugar-free, and gluten-free as well. So if you have anybody in your family that you're baking for the holidays that may have a gluten intolerance or is following a keto or low carb diet, this would be perfect for them. So 1 1/3 cup of almond flour, and then we are gonna add in 1/2 cup of coconut flour. Now, I really like using almond flour and coconut flour because it just makes for more of like a bread texture. We do that for a lot of our recipes here at the bakery. If you use just almond flour or just coconut flour, you don't necessarily always get the right consistency. So you wanna make sure to kind of use both of those, and you can kind of play around with certain recipes if you're baking at home to try to get that texture, but you don't want it to be too wet and you don't want it to be too dry. Okay, and so we've added in that, and now we are gonna add in our swerve sweetener. Now, there's 2 different kinds of swerve sweetener. There is a powdered one and a granular one. Make sure for this particular recipe that you are getting the powdered swerve sweetener. So we're gonna add that in, and we're just gonna keep mixing. Looking at it, y'all, I probably should have gotten a bigger bowl, but that's okay, we're gonna make this work. So we're just gonna stir all of these ingredients together. Now, the really cool thing about this recipe is not only is it perfect for fall, but you can make it year round. So we'll get that nice and mixed. There we go. And then we're gonna start adding in a little bit of the additives. Now, what I mean by that is that means our vanilla, baking soda, and all of our spices. So we are gonna start with 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So just have a teaspoon measuring, you can just add that in. Now you can add these in at the end, or you can add them in the beginning, however you wanna do it. So that was our vanilla. Now we're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. So we'll just add that in. Now there is a secret ingredient, which there's some secret ingredients in some of my stuff, but in this particular one, this secret ingredient is xanthan gum. So you can get this at any local supermarket, Walmart, Sam's, Whole Foods, wherever you shop, but that's 1/2 teaspoon of that. And then of course cinnamon, because it's not really pumpkin without cinnamon, right? So we're gonna add in a little bit of cinnamon. Now, you can make this bread however you like when it comes to spices, but the 3 spices that I use are cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. And I just use 1/2 teaspoon of each of those. So we'll go ahead and pour those in. There we go. And then we will mix this all together, and then we'll go ahead and spray that bread loaf, and then I'll show you how to put that in the pan, because we're only gonna do 1/2 of the ingredients in the pan, and then we're gonna do a filling, and then we'll do the other 1/2 of the ingredients on top. All right, now that that is nice and mixed, Perfect. So you can see at home, if you're baking along with me, you can kind of see that consistency. It's not real dry. It's not real wet. You want to make sure it has more of a dough consistency is really what you're going for. We are going to set that off to the side. And next we are going to move on to our cream cheese filling. I've already melted my cream cheese in the microwave for just about 20 or 30 seconds. If you have room temperature cream cheese, that works as well. So this is 1 cup, about 8 ounces if you're doing like the block cream cheese at home. So you're just gonna put that in the bowl. And like I said, I've already kind of melted mine in the microwave, but if you have room temperature, that is fine too. So that is 1 cup or 8 ounces of cream cheese. Again, 1/4 cup, and make sure it's the powdered swerve sweetener. So we're just gonna mix that in. And then 1 egg. Again, room temperature. So just make sure you use a room temperature egg for all of these ingredients for this recipe that we're doing today. And now we are just gonna mix all of this together. Now, I like adding a little bit more cinnamon. You don't have to if you're not a big cinnamon person or not a big spice person. You can leave the cream cheese filling the way it is. But like I said, I like a little bit more cinnamon in mine. So I'm gonna add just a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon to my cream cheese mixture, just to get a little bit of that extra fall flavor in there. So we'll mix that all together. And it doesn't matter if it's like a little bit clumpy, that's totally fine. It's gonna bake in the oven. Now, I should have probably mentioned that you probably need to preheat your oven to 325, and this bread is gonna bake 20 to 25 minutes. So if you are at home, go ahead and set that oven to 325. All right, perfect. So we have both of those. Now we're just gonna take a bread loaf pan. Now, this is the one that I use, but really you guys can use really any shape or size. It really doesn't matter as long as it's made for bread because of the consistency of the pan. So then we're just gonna spray it. Now, sometimes for my breads, I like to use parchment paper, but for this particular one, it really comes out of the pan pretty easy. So we're just gonna spray it. So we're gonna take about half of that mixture, and you can kind of eyeball it. You don't have to necessarily measure it out, but let's just take half of that mixture and we're gonna put it on the bottom of the pan. And then we're just gonna use our spatula over here and we're just gonna kind of spread this out. So just make sure it's covering and going all the way to the corners, just like that. So we're gonna put that down in there. And then after we put half of that mixture down at the bottom, next we're gonna take this cream cheese mixture and we're gonna put this on top. So we're gonna pour this right on top, just like that. And just like we did with the first part of the bread, we're gonna spread it all around to the corner. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of spreading it just like that. Just make sure you get it all to the sides. And then we're gonna take the other half of that pumpkin bread and we are going to put it on top. There we go. Now again, so make sure that your oven is preheated at 325. Like I said, it bakes about 20 or 25 minutes. It really just kind of depends on your oven. But here at the bakery, ours is about 20 to 25 minutes. So now that is nice and spread, and it's okay. The cream cheese mixture is a little bit runny because of that egg, but that's totally fine. That's how it's supposed to be, especially with a baked cream cheese. Now, sometimes here at the bakery, we do a no-bake cream cheese filling, but for this pumpkin bread, it's really good if you do a baked cream cheese. Perfect. So we are just going to get that nice and filled. And like I said, if your cream cheese mixture comes up a little bit, that's totally fine. That's how it's supposed to look. So I'm gonna go pop this in the oven, clean up our station, and then we are gonna be moving on to our very next recipe, which is our keto chocolate pecan pie muffins. Again, a perfect recipe to share with others and perfect for the fall weather outside. So I'm gonna clean up this mess. I'm gonna throw this in the oven on 325 for 20 to 25 minutes, and I'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. So my pumpkin bread baked on 325 in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, closer to 25 in my oven. But again, it kind of just depends on how your oven bakes at home. I've let it cool for a few minutes because I didn't want to touch the pan before I came back and showed it to you guys. So it has cooled, and now, are you guys ready? So if you're following along at home, I always like to get like a smaller pan like this and put it over the bread pan so it's a little bit easier to flip. Otherwise, sometimes whenever you try to flip your bread, it can make a mess. So pan over the bread. You guys ready? Here we go. It's like a moment of truth here at the bakery. Every time we have to flip a pan, I kind of hold my breath just a little bit. Are you guys ready? All right. Ha! Perfect. All right, so as you can see, we have made pumpkin cream cheese banana bread today. This is a great item for friends and family because it's keto, low carb, sugar-free, and gluten-free. So this is perfect for you to make at home, or you can make it and share it with your friends and family. But you can see the layers of pumpkin bread, just like how we put half of the pumpkin down. Then you can see the layers of cream cheese right there in the middle, and then another layer of pumpkin. Now you can top this with a glaze, or you can eat it as is, but let's just look in there and see what that goodness is like. Oh, perfect. Look at that, guys. Layers of bread, cream cheese, and pumpkin deliciousness. I gotta try it. You ready? Oh yeah, delicious. So, I hope you guys had just as much fun baking this as I had sharing it with you. And when we come back, we are gonna be making our keto pecan pie chocolate muffins. So, we'll see you in a minute. Welcome back, everyone. So now that we have made our pumpkin spice cream cheese bread, we are gonna keep it going with a keto pecan pie chocolate muffin. I know that's a lot of words to probably say at one time, so we're just gonna call them pecan pie muffins. It's fall, right? So we're gonna continue with the chocolate, the pecans, the cinnamon, and all those fun flavors. So again, just like I said before, all of our recipes are one bowl recipes. So just grab a bowl at home and we're gonna throw everything in at one time. Now, the one thing about this recipe is there's 2 ingredients that you have to mix together very well before you fold all of the other ingredients in. Now, those 2 are the butter and our Swerve brown sweetener. So this is 1/2 stick of butter already melted. If you have a microwave at home, toss it in the microwave and then come back in the kitchen and join us. So we're gonna melt that butter, that's 1/2 stick. And then this is going to be 3/4 cup of the Swerve brown sweetener. So you're just gonna mix this in. So we'll just move that to the side so you can see. So now we're just gonna mix this really good. Now sometimes with brown sugar or a sweetener like that, whether it's coconut sugar or Swerve brown sugar, it tends to get a little clumpy. So make sure you mix that really, really well together. We're gonna mix that so it looks a little bit like that. Now sometimes the butter and the sugar separate, that's totally fine. Just keep mixing. Once we add all of the other ingredients in, it'll be just fine. So then we're gonna add in 2 eggs. Now these eggs this time do not have to be room temperature, unlike the bread recipe that we did. These are totally fine straight out of the fridge. We're gonna mix that, so 2 eggs. And then we're just gonna do a little splash of vanilla. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, when it comes to doing a splash, I don't measure. So if you have a little bit of vanilla at home, just take it and splash it. There you go. So we'll move that off to the side. So far we have added in our butter, our eggs, and our sugar and our vanilla. And now we are gonna add in our almond flour. Now, if you have somebody at home who has an almond allergy, you could also use a gluten-free flour or even a coconut flour as well. But today we are gonna be using an almond flour. This is 1 cup of almond flour. So we are just gonna mix this all in together. And again, you can just use like a little handheld whisk, or if you've got a spatula, that works too. But these are all of the ingredients that we're gonna mix together first. And then we are gonna fold in our pecans and our chocolate. Now, I'm gonna tell you the measurements that I use for these muffins, but if you wanna add a few more pecans or a few more chocolate chips, that's okay too. So now that we have our mixture, now we are gonna add in 1 cup of chopped pecans. Now you wanna make sure at home that you chop these pecans beforehand. You can get whole pecans and chop them yourself, or you can even buy store-bought already chopped pecans. But make sure they're chopped because that way you're not biting into whole pecans in the muffins, plus it helps with the batter bake a little bit more evenly. So 1 cup. Now, I'm not gonna put the whole cup in, I'm just gonna do 3/4, and I'm gonna leave some to be able to sprinkle on top of the muffins, just to make them a little extra pretty. So we're gonna fold in. Now, as you can see, the batter of this consistency is a little bit runny, but that's okay. It's gonna bake in the oven, and it's gonna come to more of a muffin texture. And then we have 1/3 cup of sugar-free chocolate chips. Now, same way with the pecans, I'm not gonna put all of them in. I'm just gonna do probably about 3/4 of them. And then I'm gonna mix those in. That way I have some, I'm saving some for the top of my muffins as well. We've got that batter nice and mixed. So now we're gonna move all of this to the side. Now, any 12 count muffin container is fine. This usually makes about 10 muffins. So if you wanna double the recipe at home, you can do that as well. And then I just use a scoop. Now this is a 1.5 tablespoon scoop. So I do 2 scoops per muffin, but if you have a scooper at home that's 3 tablespoons, that works well too. So I'm just gonna scoop those in. Now, these don't rise a whole lot. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's no leavening in this recipe. So as high as you fill them, they're only gonna rise just a little bit higher than that. So 2 scoops. Now, let's be honest, you don't necessarily have to have a 3 tablespoon scoop or a 1.5. You don't have to be all fancy like us at the bakery. You can just use a regular spoon if you're at home, no worries. But just fill that all the way up to the top, and I'll kind of show you when I get done scooping how high that I'm filling them, so you can kind of see when they bake how much they're really gonna rise. So if you have somebody in your family or you yourself likes chocolate and pecans, or you love pecan pie, this is the perfect muffin for you. The great thing about this recipe is it's keto, low carb, sugar-free, and gluten-free. Now here at the bakery, we do work with a lot of allergies. So if you wanted to make it dairy-free or soy-free or almond-free like we talked about before, you can do that as well. You just gotta sub out some of the ingredients. So I'm gonna kind of show you at home. This is what it looks like without spilling the batter too much. But see how doesn't really come up all the way. It comes up about 1/4 of an inch all the way to the top. Again, it's not gonna rise very much. So this is what it's gonna look like. And then, like I was telling you guys before, I take a little bit of extra ingredients and I kind of put them on top. And that just makes it to where you have the chocolate chips and the pecans inside of the muffins, but then you also have them on top as well. It just kind of makes them more aesthetically pleasing, I guess you could say. So now that we've added those, now we're gonna take the rest of our chopped pecans and we're just gonna sprinkle those on top. Now this recipe today made 9 muffins. I've made it before and I've kind of scrounged out 10, but you can kind of count on making 9 or 10 muffins. And if you want to make more than that, if you're doing it for a family gathering, you can just double this recipe at home. So this is it, guys. So we are gonna put this in the oven for 325. This usually bakes for about 15 to 20 minutes. Again, everybody's oven is different, but we are gonna pop this in the oven on 325 for 20 to 25 minutes, and I'll be right back to show you guys what it looks like. All right, guys, welcome back. So it has been about 20 minutes in our oven on 325. And if you're joining us back in the kitchen, you know that we have made some chocolate pecan pie muffins. So we got about 9 muffins out of that. So this is gonna be kind of what they look like whenever they come out. Now, if you wanna be extra fancy at home, you can melt some chocolate, kind of swirl some chocolate on top if you wanted to do that. But today we're just gonna keep them basic because I just wanted to show you guys the basic recipe and then you guys can get fancy from there. But these are our keto pecan pie chocolate muffins. So even though we didn't use any leavening powder, you can see that it's still a pretty good size. So you notice how I told you guys before that whenever we filled the cups, that we filled it all the way to the top. This is why, because these are about the size of the muffins. So you can see, oh yeah, those are great. So you can see in there all of the chocolate chips and the pecans. You guys, this is a delicious muffin. I can't wait for you guys to try it. That is it for this episode of our fall desserts here in the kitchen. We've made a breakfast, we kind of made like a breakfast pumpkin cream cheese bread, and now we have made a chocolate pecan pie muffin. But you have to join us next time in the kitchen as we take it back to the classics and we do a classic chocolate cupcake and some classic blueberry muffins. See you next time, guys.